Welcome back. The Trump administration unveiled new dietary guidelines that calls for Americans to ditch high processed foods and instead prioritize protein and healthy fats. Health officials also released an updated version of the food pyramid that reflects those new guidelines. So protein, dairy, healthy fats, vegetables and fruits, they're at the top. Whole grains you see there are at the bottom. Our chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes spoke with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about the new guidelines just yesterday. So Nancy, what did he say about these changes, specifically on saturated fats? And do other big health organizations share the same sentiment?
Well, he really stressed the importance, in his view, of people getting enough protein in their diets. And one big source of protein is red meat and chicken and things like that, that tend to be higher in saturated fats. But he does not believe that that is a bad thing. He is pushing for up to 10% of your calories coming from saturated fats, coming from protein, coming from full-fat dairy. And there is a lot of controversy over this particular point, because even though organizations like the American Heart Association like the fact that there's more of a focus in this pyramid on fruits and vegetables, less focus on processed foods, they have longtime concerns that there is a link between eating more saturated fats and cardiovascular disease. So I asked the health secretary about that yesterday. Take a listen. Mr. Secretary, the American Heart Association had a lot of good things to say about these new recommendations. They like the focus on whole grains, on fruits and vegetables. But when it comes to saturated fats, they say that saturated fats are a primary driver of cardiovascular disease. You said you're ending the war on saturated fats. Where is the evidence that that is a good idea?
Well, the problem is that there's no good evidence that saturated fats drive cardiac disease. That is a dogma that was based on a 1960 study that has been completely debunked.
There is some conflicting research when it comes to saturated fat. So how did you decide to come down on one side rather than the other? And can you share with us who you relied upon to make these decisions?
Well, those citations are all in the report. Just so that you know, there is a cap on saturated fats at 10% of the diet. It's pretty low. It's a lot of people thought it should be much, much higher. What we're stressing is that people.
We all remember the food pyramid from growing up, but these are actually significant changes. It's more about just recommendations for the American public. The U.S. dietary guidelines that come out every 5 years have a big influence on school lunches, on what is served to members of the military, what is served in VA hospitals. So the fact that the pyramid has essentially been inverted the way that it has could have some pretty significant dietary implications for a lot of Americans.
Yeah, certainly some big changes there. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much.